I just want to introduce you to what is the second workshop of a three-part series. You don't need to be part of the first workshop to be part of this workshop, but this is focusing specifically on virtual reality and looking at how we can use virtual reality to create making challenges and maker spaces, how we can use it to create a more inclusive and adaptable space and accessible to all people, and then also how to create virtual reality and create challenges for people as well. What I had you do, I'm just going to pause and go out into our virtual reality space. And we have two entries, and thank you very much for those people who have joined here. It says using VR to create a project, which is amazing. Never used VR in Makerspace activities. And then Oculus owner joining the session in VR. That's incredible. And I love, and then simulations, virtual reality simulates an artificial environment. Amazing, amazing. So thank you very much for everybody contributing. Keep this coming because we're going to go back to this at the end as well. And absolutely love that we have somebody joining in virtual reality. That's amazing. Before we get started, I just want to create a territorial acknowledgement and just to discuss with everyone that I am a visitor on this land and I'm coming predominantly from Scottish descent. And first of all, acknowledging the Susquehannock and Piscataway peoples of the Chesapeake Bay, and really the sacred land on which my ancestors live and created. And according to the Gaelic language, the cultures are rooted in the principles and kinship of community and that deep connection between people, land, and non-human and human forms. So now I live and play on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people, and what was known as traditionally Takaranto and as now Toronto. And I teach on the lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So I'm kind of amazingly a part of and feel very privileged to be a part of so many of these lands. And I really strive in my role as coordinator for equity, diversity, and inclusion to understand the local Indigenous communities. And so I commit to reframing my responsibility to the land and to the community and to the people and come at it from a very respectful lens and look at it from a piece of having to learn and unlearn and relearn because I feel very privileged to be here, but then also recognizing the historical wrongdoings, the violence to Indigenous cultures, Indigenous traditions, values, and peoples at the hands of the Canadian government. And so I strive in my own practice to be able to kind of create a call in a way to action, both for myself as well as others. And in doing so within this space today, we recognize the sustainability of both the materials and the commitment we have to the land in sustaining these materials, but then also to Indigenous ways of learning, knowing, and doing as we create. Okay. So, and please feel free to share your own Indigenous territorial acknowledgement if you wish in the chat area. So as we move forward, our agenda, we have about an hour together, and I want to do way more doing and making than anything else. So I am going to give a very brief background as to what the first workshop was all about. There are a few of my students here that are in my class for inclusive makerspaces, and so this should be a review for all of you. And then for those people who are new, if you want any additional information to this review, then I'm more than welcome to share that with you and feel very happy to do so. So then we're going to be going into a virtual reality 101, really from the beginner to the expert, what it is, how we can use it, especially within the inclusive makerspace, and then moving to this inclusive making in a virtual reality. I do have a challenge for all of us. So both as a model of how to create virtual reality based challenges, as well as how to collaboratively design in a virtual world and create in virtual. I do want us to be very realistic that this is 1 hour. And typically this type of workshop could take much, much longer than that 1 hour. Specifically, but just a lot of explore and discover and where you want to go with this. And so we'll leave it open as well to anything at the end that you would like answered or we can discuss, and even a request for further workshops if this is something of interest. So just briefly, some of you may know me, some of you don't. I come originally, I was in K to 12 for 17 years as an educator, as a resource teacher, as a modern learning coordinator for the Peel Board of Education in Toronto, or in Mississauga specifically, and then was an instructor, and I worked as an academic advisor at Brock University. I was the coordinator, or well, not coordinator, executive director for curriculum development at York University. I did a lot of work with the Asian Business and Management program for government, corporate, and education sectors. You can see right here, I was in China, Hangzhou, China, doing a lot of work. And now I'm at UBC in the MET program and teaching Master of Educational Technology and the coordinator for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, Decolonization, and Anti-Racism. I am a mom of 2 teenagers and a partner. They're now grown up a lot more. Everybody's way taller than me now. And I absolutely love anything thrill seeking. So we have snowmobiles and ATVs and all the fun stuff. Okay. So what I want you to really think about, and this is something from from our past workshop, is thinking about who's missing from your story. So anytime you approach any leadership opportunities, anytime you approach, if you're an educator or teaching, if you're running a workshop, I want you to think of the lens that you're approaching and whose story are you missing? Where might your own inherent biases come from, and how might that affect your group? And even in a makerspace, how might that affect the students or the learners within that space? So this is a clickable link right here, and it is considerations for creating a culturally responsive pedagogical implementation or an environment for people. And I find that it's really, really helpful because it just reminds ourselves every time in order to look at things from what we call the liberatory design thinking process. And that is, we are noticing our own inherent biases. We're noticing the different types of cultural responsiveness that are needed, how we're designing from a culturally responsive, equitable, and sensitive lens to IBPOC, to us LGBTQIA plus communities, as well as abilities and disabilities. So this is a lens by which we design, and you can go into more detail with that, but this is just, as we said, a review from the last one. And as we continue through, I just want to point out there is an inclusive makerspace, a virtual makerspace. And this space has tons and tons of resources that are using the EDIDA, or Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, Decolonization, Anti-Racism model, to basically create and design provocations and maker challenges. And all of these are up here ready to go. And you can click on any of these and go straight to that particular website. There's lesson plans, there's unit plans. It's just meant to be a one-stop shop. Now, this is transitioning into an actual virtual and augmented space. So I'll give you some more information a little bit later in the presentation, but really it is becoming this space where you can view everything through a virtual sense. You can view it through augmented reality, and there are different challenges where you can create those, and as well as leave those challenges as well as you move forward. So when we're looking at really understanding virtual reality, we need to understand the metaverse. And metaverse was created literally by Meta looking at Microsoft, looking at conglomeration of all different major tech areas and hubs for technology. But really it's looking at what the metaverse is the virtual world that will be that will usher in the next phase of the internet. And this phase is not quite here yet, and it's not necessarily pretty. You'll notice that anything virtual reality, whether you play Beat Saber, whether you go on and use it for different realms, we see futuristic movies all the time where within a virtual or augmented world where people are grabbing and doing and partaking and learning, and we're not quite there. And even representatives from Meta will say that we're not there yet. But we are in a phase where we are starting to be able to design ourselves within this virtual world. Now, you would see here two different avatars that were created. The first being very much a more realistic version. And I see up here, thank you, player ready one. I see that this is more of a realistic avatar. And then we also have our created avatar within this as well. So there's so many different ways that we can create avatars, but eventually our avatars are going to be able to speak among each other, and they can already do so, but we don't see it as predominantly in everyday life or within educational spaces. We see them here and there, but it hasn't proliferated the entire society yet. I'm working on a project right now with the Squamish canoe culture, and we are actually creating a virtual and augmented space with holograms and superimposed elders that will be launching in May. And it's something that's really, really interesting to see how we're taking all different types of environments and merging them together in these spaces. So we're going to do a little bit of breaking out and discovery and exploring and everything in these realms. And some of these you might be familiar with, and others you might not be. But Google Earth and Google Expedition both have incredible 360 abilities, sorry, for us to be able to learn through that virtual sense. So all of these are clickable. I'm just going to speak to them, and then we'll go into a couple of examples. And then I'm going to break you out into groups, and you might have different groups for each time we break out. Okay. So looking at YouTube 360, for instance, lots of 360 videos. This is where you can create 360. That just means 360-degree videos that you can view using cardboards, Google Cardboards. You can use Oculus. You can use any of the headsets to be able to view. And you can also view without a headset as well. So it's kind of accessible to everybody. Tilt brush is something where where you can create different types of virtual reality infused spaces and designs. Same with A-Frame. Steam, this is a site where you can purchase different items, but I wanted to make sure that that was there. And we're looking at clicking on any of these that you're interested in exploring and discovering. Now, we are going to be talking about 360 cameras in just a minute, Nick, and seeing some examples. And I do have lots of recommended tools for the virtual tour as well. And what I want you to do in this space is I just want you to choose as a group, one of these that maybe the entire group might not be as familiar with, and take some time to explore and discover for just a couple of minutes. And then I'll give you a 1-minute warning to come back in. And something that you're not familiar with as an entire group. I know it's hard. Sometimes there's experts and not. But I just want you to explore and discover. And then we're going to talk about how we might actually transition that into a makerspace. Now, very interesting that both groups chose A-Frame to discover and something new. And that's what I was hoping, that there would be something that people had not explored. Does anybody, it's a nice small space, actually. I was expecting a lot more, but I'm totally fine with it being a nice 9 of us or 12, 11 of us, I suppose. Does anybody want to say anything about A-frames? Some aha moments, or, oh, I didn't know it did that. Or this is pretty cool. I'd like to explore more.
I was impressed by how many different, examples it has.
Yeah.
Like, it has the anime and a Beat Saber viewer, and, there were just so many examples. I'm curious as to how you would create something in the platform.
Well, you might have a chance in a little bit to do so.
Maybe.
I
Anybody
think kind of
else?
I think what stood out to me with A-frame was that I mean, I'm no computer programmer, but I think HTML is definitely one of the more accessible sorts of ways of starting to kind of learn how to code and program stuff. So it's kind of
Yeah.
neat that that's sort of the access point. It's not like you need to know like Python or anything like that, which I know nothing about. But I think they kind of created this to be a little bit more accessible with that,
Mhm.
I think.
It's really nice too because it's compatible with different types of generative AI. So what you could do is you could actually have generative AI write the HTML code for you to be able to do certain things. So if you run into something that you don't know how to do, it will write the code for you and actually make it happen. So it's pretty cool that way.
That's cool. Yeah, I've used ChatGPT to make an app before that I hosted online,
Hmm.
and I have no coding experience, but I figured it out with ChatGPT. That's
Right?
pretty.
There you go. Amazing. So we're going to have some more time to explore and discover in just a little bit. Question about 360 cameras and different things. I actually own the GoPro. I'm doing a little bit of a study what I like better, what I find more accessible, and the Insta 360. So I'm actually just next weekend going to get the Insta 360. And this was something, I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Teresa Dobson. Is the associate dean at UBC. This is us just playing around with the camera, doing a little bit of walking in the space. At this point, it looks like just a regular camera, but you get a little motion sickness there. But the amazing thing is the capabilities that it has, because it has the front lens and the back lens. And uploading to something like A-frame is really, really easy. Once you start creating 360 videos, once you start creating in a virtual realm, the files get extremely big. And I think, Tony, you touched on that as well. And you can upload to YouTube to a certain capacity. There's times that we've tried in the past and it hasn't worked because they are too big. But you can actually turn your own smartphone into a 360 camera using different apps. So it makes it even more accessible. Now, obviously, you know, with the GoPro Hero at $436 or the Insta almost at $500, that's not accessible to all people. But in a classroom, you can easily, or in a learning environment where you don't have a lot. Best Buy, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but they have at the end of their seasons, which their seasons are April, the end of their sort of fiscal year, they do donations of smartphones of things that have been brought back in to different types of educators, instructional designers, things like that, people in those roles. And I can help you if you're interested. We've received thousands and thousands of smartphones where you're able to now utilize these types of software on those devices that you wouldn't have accessible before. A lot of this is great for younger students, particularly who don't have their own smart devices, or this makes it more accessible for people who can't afford smart devices. But it brings in that accessibility lens, but it also provides a piece of that hardware and software that you can use in any type of making environment. Okay, and make any smartphone a 360 video phone. So that's just going on again. We'll just pause that and continue going. So there is a ton on the market right now, some that are, you know, everything from a virtual reality. You have the new MetaQuest 3 that's both virtual and augmented. And again, we're looking at accessibility, that this is a huge hindrance to spaces. So you could appreciate, obviously, the more expensive the equipment, the better the view and everything like that, but you can make your own headset. And this is something that you can buy. You can even do it actually with a water bottle. So you can take the edge of the water bottle. I made them last year and they turned out perfectly. You take the edge, the rounded concave part of the water bottle, and you cut them in the little diameter type. And this is the exact one right here. And cardboard, a shoebox, a pizza box, and you can make these yourself for virtually no money at all. And if you're thinking of creating a more accessible space to all people where they can either make them their own and take it home and everything, that this is a making challenge all in of itself. And so if you hyperlink, or this is hyperlink, so if you click here, it's the template that you can click on or that you can print off. And then the QR code here has a video on how to make your own VR headset. So now we're getting into the crux of this particular challenge. Both I wanted to symbol and kind of model how to create provocations and maker challenges that are inclusive, do tackle social issues and real world problems, and do utilize virtual reality in that sense. Okay, so what I want you to do, I'm going to put you back into groups, and we can do the groups that you were in to discover if you want. But you can do it as a group, you can do it individually. I want you to choose one of the 3 virtual reality 360 videos. Now, this video is actually not a 360 video because the issue is right now is content. And unless somebody is filming and creating the content, it's not there, it's not accessible. So the biggest thing is, if you are able to, and I was thinking the next time, if we're looking at homelessness in Vancouver, which is a big issue, it is in Toronto and everything as well, it's all around the world, we can create a 360 video. But for now, this is the only one that's not. But I really want you to kind of get a sense of homelessness, the issues, the struggles, the barriers from multiple levels. And I want you in your breakout groups to really discuss any observations from the video, emotions, insights gained. And I said that this provocation could also be used as a virtual scenario. So navigating shelter, facing challenges on the streets, or understanding emotional impact of homelessness. And what I did was I chose something that you could literally use from kindergarten all the way through to higher education. Okay, so individuals can even start through the making by recording these 360 videos. So you can go through and identify different challenges and record the videos and then use them as a provocation moving forward. Okay, but this was all based on my grade 10 daughter. She's turning 15. She had an assignment with the article here. You'll see her whole assignment that she agreed to allow you to see. But it was looking at how somebody creates visuals and images to draw attention to homelessness and raise awareness and break that stigma and that challenge. So that's sort of where the inspiration to the design of this maker challenge, and I called it Home Space Solutions. This is a really good wondering for VR. Going beyond the experiential and the impact that VR has on students, and does it lead to higher levels of understanding and concepts, cost, time, all of this is really important. And there have been quite a few studies lately, 2022, 2023. There's Fu, there's Ahmed. I can post all the studies if you're interested, that have asked that exact question. Does it go beyond experiential? And anytime somebody is able to experience something that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to experience, that in and of itself is a benefit to VR. However, it's shown increased in different circumstances, shown increased critical thinking, shown empathy and engagement. It's shown increased levels of 21st century competency development, of collaboration, communication, creativity, and innovation. And when it comes down to that, it looks at, and I think it's really, really important, it comes down to the idea of what the Sammer model talks about is having to have that redefinition stage, that ability to use technology in a way that's going to redefine somebody's learning. Typically, you can't get an entire class walking through the streets and really engaging in what it's like to be homeless or in assimilation for that. So just building that experiential moment where they're able to see and continue to engage with different elements, that is one of those pieces. But really, it's the focusing and the nuances that are established when you create these type of challenges that engage in critical thinking and engage students to think further just past that experiential moment. So that's a provocation to get us thinking, to get us wondering. And then I know that you're posting a lot in the chat. I will look at that in just a second. I just wanted to keep moving on. But I think also, Tony, you had said it in the virtual reality piece, is using VR for a purpose and not just using it to use it. And so often that's what we're seeing. And that's why I think it's important for us to be really encourage the creation of 360 videos and virtual reality, because then you're looking at it from a critical lens. You're looking at it from more than just absorbing what you're seeing and what's around you. We have to get more personal experience of homelessness by walking in their shoes. Does it involve deeper emotions than images and videos? And being able to immerse and be able to look and talk. And the progression of virtual reality through holograms, through different pieces that are going to continue as technology advances, is going to be sort of the next step in this area. So as we did this, now we're getting into the actual challenge. And I recognize we have 13 minutes. I'm going to go through the entire challenge and then give the rest of the time to you deciding as a group what you want to do. But this is utilizing VR, and you'll see using VR to inspire making. And then we're going to use VR to make. Okay, so this example of a low-tech solution, you give a group a homelessness kit, what they need, and they decide paper, cardboard, art supplies, things like that, and conduct a needs assessment for homelessness. What is it? And this is a really good critical dialogue. Based on what we saw in those 360 videos, what was it that we see the need for? How can low-tech solutions address these basic needs like shelter, warmth, hygiene, communication, things like that? So these images were created by Imagine Art, which is an AI tool. And this is an example: design a foldable portable shelter that can be transported, made from recycled materials. So then we get into a low-tech, high-tech, and this is another example. So you use high-tech materials such as micro controllers. So many people they know microbits, for instance, sensors and coding platforms, and create solutions to amplify impact and address specific issues. So again, the VR was a means to inspire making. So at this point, we're not using VR to make. You could easily integrate augmented reality within this, but that's another session, but we can talk about it. So here, create a solar powered backpack with a GPS tracker for mobile charging, or heater, incorporating a low-tech communication system to connect with support services. Okay, so that's just an example, but so many examples you can come up with. And then this was a community engagement using no tech, low tech, or virtual reality and high tech. Consider community engagement and advocacy. So from the VR, turning it into what are the needs? What do we want to say? Develop strategies that involve no tech. So community gatherings, awareness campaigns, low tech flyers, community workshops to raise awareness and gather support for solutions. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with this. There's it just walks through. It's a way for you to practice speeches, for you to practice community awareness, giving that within an environment. This is through the Oculus, within an environment that you can invite people within a virtual reality, so people can join in virtual reality to listen to your campaign or what it is you're trying to say about homelessness, or you can do just a candid audience that's part of the app. And again, these are all just ideas and examples of ways that you can continue to utilize virtual reality. Then actually using virtual reality to make, now you're designing and you're creating. So a really great user-friendly tool, I talked about A-Frame. It's really easy to start off with. Unity 3D, it's a little bit more intricate, but again, they call it beginner. I'm using it right now, that and Unreal right now, to create an environment that we're creating. And then Makerspaces, EDU, some love it, some hate it, but these are some design elements. And there's so many out there. I just gave 3 as an examples, and then there's tutorials and videos. But really the VR scenario is identify key scenarios related to homelessness seen in the video that you're watching, discuss during your breakout or provocation, and what you're going to do is you're going to now design a VR experience of somebody having to find shelter, or assessing and accessing resources, or facing discrimination and what that looks like, and how you can counteract and remedy that situation, these stereotypes, lacks of services or funding that's available. So this is where you're actually designing a scenario utilizing VR. So these are some you have individuals design a narrative structure. So those are some tools that you can use. And again, we're going to go back to this. Create a storyboarding, so something like this. Asset creation, so start again 3D modeling, start sketching up. You can add those to any of those A-frame or CoSpaces or whatever, you can create, even in Tinkercad, you can print them out in 3D models to test them if you need to. And then you can use Unity, for instance, to create scenes and actually start creating this entire virtual reality scenario. Okay, a 3D camera can be done so in a way where you could create this series and put them all together as a way to create this incredible frame, incredible scenario in that respect. Okay, and then here's examples. So the shelter search, and these are based on, these are in Ontario right now, that they've created little communities. So this is an example of creating a virtual city where people are trying to find shelter. Another one, resource accessibility, a virtual reality scenario where user faces obstacles, assessing essential resources that they need to survive. And then the other one is community. How do you immerse the community and involve them within a virtual reality space to, again, deal with discrimination, really break that status quo of what it is to be homeless, understanding those pieces. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, because I know, again, it's only an hour session, but just the possibilities. If it's something that you're interested in actually moving through and making and doing, then we can do that too. We can have another session. But this is the space that I'm designing right now with my team. It uses an Unreal Engine where actually these are different Makerspace. This is a cardboard challenge activity that we're putting together. You'll see that it has the liberatory design process on the wall. It has the EDIDA. It has the website that's all clickable and you can use. And in each one of these pods, you're able to get together and talk and communicate and make and do everything together within this virtual. It could be used with a headset. It could be used just on the computer. So this is something that you can work on as a next step, is designing that space. Okay, so just wanted to finish off the presentation piece of it all and then give anybody time. I'm here, so if you want to stick around and ask questions, or if you want to explore and discover, you're more than welcome to do that. But really looking at inclusion with VR, there are so many accessibility pieces. Looking at it user friendly with Google Cardboards that can be very affordable, compatible. I do want to really bring to light that 30% of people, especially on the more elaborate headsets like Oculus, do experience motion sickness. So unfortunately, the technology is not there yet. That's why the metaverse is not quite there yet to help that. So thinking about ways to create an accessible that people can use headsets or use it just online to look at and experience that same have that same experience with both, but making sure that you are considering that cultural perspective, that you're able to do so in your design because you have a handle in designing the virtual reality, especially 360 videos. You can be cognizant of the choices that you're making. How are you filming? What are you filming? Why are you filming that? Really looking at defining the goals of what you're doing within your virtual reality space and making sure that it's collaborative. And those people who are in my class, they'll see back to our module 2 that we have, that you bring people to the table, that everybody has a spot at that table, that everybody is part of that decision-making process, that you're having representation from all peoples who are using that space to be able to give and collaborate and give feedback. So you can read the rest. This is a resource for you. There is a whole set of lessons from K-3, 4 to 8, high school and higher education that I've created right here for virtual reality. And then we do have an augmented reality. Again, it's only an hour, so there's only skimming the surface of what could be available. But I hope this gave some igniting to ideas where you can go from here, how you can utilize VR in your own space. And I know the students in mind, this is a stepping stone to your CLT number 7. I think that you're able to now continue with that. So there's about 3 or 4 minutes left. What I'm going to do is just open it up to any questions that people have. I know that some people have been very active, and thank you, Tony, for making recommendations. In the class, Tony utilizes VR often in the role that he has. And so hopefully, Tony, I know that you were able to walk away with some ideas here as well. but everybody else too. And this chat will have the history so that people will be able to access that afterwards as well. I will send you the links of those studies, definitely. Support VR. It's really, really helpful to have the support, especially when you're bringing it forth to a committee or to administrators or directors, as to what the strengths are for this particular piece. So I will definitely make sure that that is there, and especially with the ordering of VR headsets. Now, let me tell you this, Nick, and this is to everybody as well. And I only know because I've recently gone through this for the Summer Institute, because I am running the VR XR AR course for the Summer Institute for Met, is I had a meeting with Microsoft, said that I was very interested in testing, but I'm also going to be testing Apple, testing Oculus, through Meta and everything. Would they be willing to donate 4 to 6 devices to my class, what I called the class, for testing, so that I can give them actual very, very solid feedback? And they are now giving us 4 sets for free. So this is something that you can go around and you can start speaking, and those, I have contacts to everybody. So if it's something that you're interested in buying, I would not necessarily say that this would be a class set worth. You'll definitely want like groups and everything. And part of that VR and part of the argument is being able to have one person on and everybody be able to see what they're experiencing. So it could be very, very collaborative in that respect as well, because everybody has access to seeing what's happening on the headset. And again, that increases accessibility. Thank you very much, Tony. So you'll take everything, Nick. I'll send you it all. So as a follow-up to this, so you're entirely Apple-based. But Apple, that's okay, because I have the contact for the VP of Apple Innovation anyway as well. So what I'm going to do as an outcome of this session is hopefully you find something that you're interested in further exploring, and I will send any connections. It's something that maybe we could set up a meeting, so anybody who's interested can come and speak to an Apple rep, speak to a Microsoft rep, and things like that, and just see what they're able to provide. But I know very much, obviously there's so much competition when it comes to virtual reality right now, that people want to get their products out there, and because their products are so expensive, they're willing to give a few for testing and feedback, with the hope and intention that you might purchase as a school more. Okay. So feel free to try things out, to do things. I think a lot of this in a 1-hour session, we're just touching the surface and everything. But that VR challenge, you're more than welcome to take and use. I'm a huge sharer, so anything that you see here, use as you need. And if you have any questions, I'm just going to put my email. Most of you, or a lot of you, have it, but I'll put my email in here. Please feel free at any point in time to reach out, and I will absolutely 100% help you in any way that I can. Okay, and a lot of that might come through connections. It might be inviting you if around, or if you're able to be part of the Summer Institute for our Met students. We are doing a lot of making and a lot of creating in virtual and augmented reality, and a lot of discovery through that. So, okay, you're more than welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming.